It's Momo Monday, and you know what to do. Breathe in. And out. And breathe in. And out. And some of you may be looking for an update on Zelda. Zelda has the cone of shame off her head. She has her stitches out. You'll see her. She's looking much, much happier. Zelda did not like being restricted from jumping and playing and all that stuff with the cone on her head. She did not like it at all. And so she got her stitches out. And now she's back to being the happy, jumpy Zelly Belly with her favorite thing in the world, foil balls. It didn't take her long. She go, gimme the foil ball, gimme. Yeah, Zelda loves her foil ball. So yeah, she is back to normal. You'll see her tummy is still quite bald, but she's doing well. For people who don't know what happened to Zelda, Zelda just got spayed. She had her anatomical adjustment. And the sort of segue into the topic for the week is that sometimes things that are, beneficial for us, that need to be done, aren't the most fun thing in the world. And that involves learning. Oh, but first, you'll notice this thing the cats are all around, the big thing wrapped in bubble wrap. That is a set piece for Lady Bits. I've already started ordering stuff for it. It is that lull in a Kickstarter campaign in the middle that donations sort of slowed down. They're still coming in, we still get a few a day, like between 6 and 10 a day. But, we're going to have to start ramping up for the last 2-week push. So any sharing or promoting of the project that you guys can do among your own social networks, greatly appreciated, because getting things about projects like this from people you know and trust are way more powerful than any media story, because you guys know that the trust in the media nowadays is not the most is not at a high watermark, we'll say. And that's one of the things that has been a learning experience in this process. It's been fascinating, and part of the idea of doing this series of doing Lady Bits was to actually see how various groups in gaming would respond. Do the experiences that I'm finding as part of this process mesh with the best science we know about women in various workforces and everything like that, as opposed to the narrative in the press about, gamers harass women and all that stuff. And so far, it seems as though the science is correct and the narratives are somewhat wrong, in that science, the best data we have now, and I add that as a caveat because this stuff changes a lot. Experts believe that the thing that's really, having women move into some careers and not others are professional networks. And that in certain professions, like, say, the games industry, women are not adequately plugged into the professional networks the way that men in the industry are. Other industries have greater inclusion of women in those professional networks, and so there are more women in these industries. Now, the issue is that may be true in some workplaces. They're looking for sort of the largest industry-wide trend, and the truly frustrating thing about this issue is that it is not one factor. There are 7 to 10 factors explaining kind of the lack of women in certain industries, and no single one is really terribly dominant. It's certainly not the minority, and in the attempt, so the majority, I'm sorry, in the attempts to quantify the effect of the various things. It's a complicated issue. It's messy. And so we have to do the best we can. And the only way we test these theories is to test the theories. And I keep going back to Betty Friedan because she was, at least she made the attempt in the Feminine Mystique to go out and talk to experts and do surveys. And it wasn't just, this is what I think, believe me, because listen and believe. And she talked even back in the day about how elective courses in college that she referred to as pseudo-therapeutic were actually creating a cultural programming of sorts that made the other education less effective in terms of preparing women for careers, because this pseudo-therapeutic stuff was, oh no, this is unnatural. There's no real hope for you here. You want to be a wife. You want to be a family. It's comfortable. It's stable. It's all that stuff. And this is something that men and women alike work under. And it's important not to dismiss the role of these cultural pressures, these cultural shaping dynamics. And even back in 1963, this book review in, I believe it was the New York Times, the New York Times archive from March 6, 1963, talked about the fact that this idea that people have to be casual, they have to pretend not to care, don't get too invested in your ambitions or your education. It actually works against people being successful. Because if you can't commit, you can't commit. If you don't commit, you're not going to do very well. It's a very competitive landscape. And this book reviewer from 1963 talked about the fact that this might actually apply to men as well. And that might actually apply to, extrapolating forward the education issues facing young men today. And I'm like, wow. Back in 63, they were kind of saying that there's something going on here. And this is what happens when the media works with a work and in a exercising your critical faculties way, instead of just going, oh, we must say everything is wonderful about this, or we must find a way to destroy it. And this is the journalistic, academic synergy that I am used to. And I am discovering through this Kickstarter that this is not the media landscape of today. Some of the excuses I have been given by certain journalists for not doing an article on the Lady Bits Kickstarter, not providing it coverage. Some of them are, it's like, oh man, okay, this seems respectable at first until you dig a little deeper. And I was prepared for the argument because obviously media outlets get bombarded by Kickstarter press releases. I know I do. I get, 95% funded, all that stuff, because that's when you put out the press release to the press, when you're actually funded, when it's actually happening. So, I made the argument that there is an element of interactivity to this project that requires gamers to get involved now and sign up, and put down that pledge so you can be part of that focus group. So this is relevant to a reader's interest now. If you wait until the episode comes out, the first episode first comes out to cover this Kickstarter, the readers of this publication, the viewers of this publication will have missed out on the opportunity to join. Sounds very reasonable if I were a journalist who actually wanted to create content that my readers might find interesting and inform my readers of things relevant to their interests. I would go, all right, good point. Yes, it benefits my readers to have this coverage now. That is not what I've been getting. And the most absolutely ironic excuse, and I do consider this an excuse, and I'll tell you why in a minute, is a male journalist who complained that he was very busy and he cited his kids, among other things. He has young children and, very busy. And that I was like, oh, wow. This is really interesting. This is where my researcher nerd hat kicks in and goes, wow, like this is something I read about, but now it's happening. So there is this weird double standard for men in the workforce that in some jobs, not all, but in some, guys are given greater license because it goes against what we expect from men to cite their children as a valid reason to not complete work tasks or to work slower. Women, because that's the stereotype of dutiful wife and mother and all that stuff, can't get away to the same extent. We're seen as disinterested in our careers. And I'd heard about this. I'd heard from women executives that there was this double standard, but it had never happened to me because I don't have children. And I had a choice there. I could get angry at the outrage of it all, how unfair this is to somebody of my gender, or I can go, you know what, this is good. This is, in the short term, it's not good because I didn't get press coverage, but in terms of the ongoing validity of the product, the importance and the usefulness of the Lady Bits project, well, this is very positive because I am now going out there and testing this data. And here is an indicator. It's only one. It's only proof it does sort of happen. And it's a question we should be asking. This experience has really given credence to the complaints of the gamers I've been talking to over the last few years that are concerned that there is a unduly false narrative regarding the treatment of women in video games that is acting as an artificial barrier to women considering the industry when they're considering a career. But it also goes further than that. The media, to an extent, and this is not true of everybody. Obviously, Eric Kane on his YouTube channel, One Angry Gamer, The Gaming Ground, organizations like this, some podcasters, things like that, they have picked up on the project. They saw it as valid. And I can only speak from my own experiences. This has made me feel like it's possible. I'm not saying I can prove this. This is about asking the right question. It's possible that women are being treated as mascots in gaming to generate clicks based on an exciting narrative for various online publications that are struggling for dollars and struggling for traffic. We are more being treated as mascots by these outlets than we are actually being treated as respected industry professionals. And that is a scary potential idea. But if we don't identify this problem, we can't do anything to fix this problem. And this is, it goes to the core of what are these so-called ally press outlets, these so-called progressive sites, really trying to do with coverage involving women in gaming that deals with harassment narratives and all that stuff. Are they actually trying to make it better for women in the industry? Or are they just creating these sensationalized stories for short-term clicks? And this is a very important question for the editorial staff of these outlets to answer, because there is no shortcut to promoting a group you feel needs promotion in industry. You have to promote them. And I was first sensitized to this issue when I was producing music programming back in the day for Much Music. And I was working on a documentary about hip-hop music. and some of the stigma and stereotypes surrounding hip hop music. And a couple of the artists, they said, you guys know where we are when you want to do some issues-based programming so you can seem like you care. But then you don't promote our work. You don't treat us equally as artists. The implication was that we weren't treating Black artists like artists. We weren't treating hip-hop artists like a legitimate form of music. We were treating them like a mascot, an issue that made us, at the network seem like conscious media types. But it wasn't really doing the group we were supposed to care about any good. So I come over and I hear these very similar comments from these outlets. Oh, I'm very busy. It's like, well, you're not too busy to write these doom and gloom articles about women. You're only too busy when you might actually help a specific woman promote a specific project. And yes, it is promotion, but an enthusiast press has an element of promotion to it. There's no shame in that. It seems in gaming, the minute it becomes any individual woman, in this case, doing a project, then it becomes, well, is she the right kind of woman? Because there is a very strong impulse in gaming right now to compare any project directly to Tropes versus Women, to Feminist Frequency, to Anita Sarkeesian. And then it's, well, if I like Tropes versus Women, then I can't give any attention to anything else because, that's problematic. Or it's, well, this is going to be just like Anita's stuff. Been there, done that, don't want to give it coverage. It's interesting, though, the people who have actually been open-minded enough to give it a try are the people who do tend to lean more on, it's just going to be like Tropes versus Women, based on the comments I have seen in response. And so at least, even though they're skeptical, they covered it. When two women disagree, some people just freak out. And the minute a woman does something that might not seem nice, might seem ambitious, or might seem to care too much, to be too elbows up aggressive, some people have a really hard time processing that. And we go back to Betty Friedan's observations in the 1960s. And I am more convinced than ever that gaming really needs to diversify its opinions where these, I don't want to say social issues, but these dialogues are concerned. And if anything is being done to stifle any group's equality of opportunity, not outcomes, opportunities, then this is something we need to talk about. And it'll take time to find solutions. We'll try things that don't work and have to, suck back, reload, try again. But we gotta drop these personality politics that the opinions about one woman so lock up discussions of all women in video games. That's tokenism. But the moral of the story is, sometimes lessons are hard learned. Sometimes it runs counter to your idealism. It can be temporarily disappointing. But more knowledge is always a good thing. It doesn't have to make you bitter. It doesn't have to make you want to give up. If you have a perspective of, look, my hypothesis going in was this was not going to be easy, but it was worthwhile. And so these stumbling blocks I've encountered throughout this project have reinforced that mindset because it was an inherently positive mindset. Hopefully it makes sense. We're going to close out. Breathe in. And out. And breathe in.